Good morning, students and everyone. Again, your faculty and coach and mentor for the subject business environment, Vivek Birda, is with you, working with Tirthankara University as a senior assistant professor. And we have so far covered large number of contents in our topic. The last topic which we finished is the technological environment. The technological environment has been studied in detail, and we have covered many things. We have even seen about the IT role of the IT, the various agencies, about the technology transfers. Then we have even seen about the technological advancements, the competitive advantage, and so on. Now, the next important topic which we are going to start today in this session is about the role of the demographic environment. This is something which is very interesting and very important. So over here, we are going to understand about the demographic environment. You see, the demographic environment is something in which we will be discussing about the importance of the demographic environment, the failing birth rate and changing age structures, the migration and the ethnic aspects, and many more things. So first, we need to understand about the importance of the demographic environment in the business environment. It is conventionally said that the management is men, material, money, and machines. And even if all the other M's are excellent, it would not be used unless the man is at the right one. That means they should be right in terms of the quality, potential, motivation, commitment, etc. Thus, market is a people in the sense that the demand depends on the people and their characteristics in number, income levels, taste, preferences, belief, attitudes, and sentiments, and a host of other demographic factors. Thus, no wonder demography is an important basis of the market segmentation. Important demographic basis for the market segmentation includes following. It includes the age, structure, gender, income distribution, family size, family life cycle. For example, young, single, young, married, no children, or young, married but with the children, etc. Then about the occupation, education, social class, religion, race, nationality, etc. Thus, the demographic environment differs from country to country, from place to place within the same country or region. Further, it may change significantly over the time. Peter Duckner, who emphasizes the tremendous economic and business implications of the demographic changes, suggests that any strategy that is any commitment to the present resources of the further expectations has to start out with the demographics. With the demographic factors such as size of the population, population growth rate, age composition, ethnic composition, density of the population, rural urban distribution, family size, nature of the family, income level, etc., have a very significant implications for the business. Thus, population size, the size of the population is an important determinant of the demand of any product. There are countries with less than lakh of the people on one end, and those which have thousand millions on the other end. One of the important objectives of the formation of the European Union was to bring the single market that compares in terms of the number of the consumers as to that of the USA and Japan. Thus, the poor countries with the small population are generally not attractive for the businesses. However, even such countries may afford opportunities for some other companies, as these markets may not be of interest for the large companies. And many large companies or the small firms may find promising niche in these markets. Thus, the advanced countries, particularly with the large population, are generally attractive market, and these major part of the international trade and the foreign investment naturally take place between the nations because of the large population of these markets. Competition is generally strong in them. Thus, the demographic decline or the demographic divided, where the population in the several developed countries are either saturating or declining. As pointed out in the following section, it is still rising fast in the developing countries. According to the United Nations Population Division, the world population is likely to increase by 2.5 billion over the next 43 years since 2007, passing from the rent 6.7 billion to 9.2 billion in 2050. This increase is equivalent to the total size of the world population in 1950, and it will be absorbed mostly by the less developed regions whose population is projected to rise from 5.4 billion in 2007 to 7.9 billion in 2050. Thus, in contrast, the population of the more developed regions is expected to remain largely unchanged at 1.2 billion and would have been declined when it is not for the projected net margin from the developing to the developed countries, which is expected to the average 2.3 million persons annually. Thus, according to the BRIC report by the global consulting firm the Goldman Sachs, India has the potential to emerge as the fastest growing economy, taking China in the near future. One of the important bases of this exciting potential in Indian market demographic advantage is that it has come to be widely described as the demographic dividend. That is a large size and a large proportion of the working age population. According to the United Nations, the projection in increase in Indian population between 2000 and 2020 is 3 million, and the same size as the US population today. And during this period, India will create equivalent to the combined working population of the France, Germany, Italy, and UK. While India struggles with the burgeoning population of the educated youth, the rest of the world, especially the developing countries, faces a shortage of the working population, which are caused largely by the lower birth rates and the aging working populations. While the requirement of the skilled workers in these markets is increasingly in line with the economic growth and the advance and the availability of the skilled people simply isn't keeping pace. In professions like IT services, medicine, education, populations are already beginning to be filled. China is also likely to be affected by the manpower shortage, and for the developed countries, these shortage presents a huge challenge. It may increase the wage rates, reducing the competitiveness, slowing down economic rates, pressurize the existing social security pension systems, and will increase a significantly large percentage of the retired population, which has to be supported by the smaller percentage of the working population. Thus, in this, we need to understand about the falling birth rates and the changing age structure. True, there has been an explosive growth of the population, global population, particularly in the developing countries. Thus, the universal trend now has, however, is fall in the birth rates. Although the total population is still growing at over 1% annually, developing countries are also experiencing significant decline in the population growth rates. In developed countries, the fall in the birth rate is so steep that the population size should shrink drastically. And because of the declining birth rate, population is already peaking its number of countries. The collapse of the population size has serious implications for the businesses. Thus, the declining birth rate poses a problem for many businesses because of the decline in the birth rate and the consequent fall in the size of the baby population. The market for the baby products has shrunk. This has prompted some companies such as Johnson and Johnson to reposition their product originally introduced as the baby product and to pay more importance to the international business. Thus, the declining birth rate has, however, been moved with certain industries. For example, industries such as hotels, airlines, restaurants have benefited from the fact that the young childless couples have more time and income for travel and dining out. Small families have also similar advantage when compared to the large families. It is obvious that the businesses should necessarily ponder over whether the falling birth rate and shrinkages in the number of the young people, and especially of the people under the 18, that is the babies, children, and the teenagers, and is threat to the opportunity. According to Durkner, the most important single new certainty about the future is collapsing birth rate in the developed world, which has described the national suicide. He points out that in the Western and Central Europe and in Japan, the birth rates have already fallen well below the rate needed to produce the population, that is below 2.1 live births for the women to reproduce to the reproductive age. That is some of the Italy's richest regions. For example, in the Bolgana, the birth rate by the year 1999 has fallen to 0.8, in Japan to 1.3. In fact, Japan is, and all other southern Europe, Portugal, Spain, southern France, Italy, Greece are different routes collective national suicide by the end of the 21st century. And by then, Italy's population, for instance, now 60 million might go down to 20 or 22 million. Japan's population, which is now 125 million, might go down to 50 or 50 million. But even in Western and the North Europe, the birth rates are down to 1.5 and falling. But in the United States too, the birth rate is now below 2 and going down steadily. And this is high as it is only because of the large number of recent immigrants who still for the first generation tend to retain high birth rates to their country of origin, for example, Mexico. As Duckner points out, for a business that makes it living, making goods for the small children, the collapsing birth rate may be an opportunity. It is conceivable that having fewer children means that the child becomes more and more precious and that the large share of the disposable income is spent on it. This apparent has already appeared in China, where the majority of the families have only one child. Many families there, despite their poverty, apparent spend more of their single child than they used to spend on three or four childs. There are signs in other countries like Germany, Italy, and even in the United States of the similar developments. Although the birth rates have fallen in the developing countries, the population growth rates are still very high. This coupled a steady increase in the income drives which fast the growth of the markets of the number of the developing economies. When the population is very large, even if the country is generally poor, there could be a sizable market even for those goods and services which are regarded as luxuries in these countries. For example, if just 5% of the Indian population is well to do, the absolute number more than 50 million is large than the population of many of the high income economies. Thus, the high population growth rate also implies an enormous number increase in the labor. When the Western countries experience the industrial revolution, the population size are comparatively slow. The labor shortages and the rising wages encourage the growth of the labor intensive methods of the production. And the capital intensive technologies, automation, and even the rationalization are opposed by the labor and many sociologists, politicians, economists in the developing countries. Cheap labor in the growing market has encouraged many multinationals to invest in the developing countries, and many companies in the developed countries have relocated their production facilities wholly or partially in the developing countries to reduce the labor cost. Thus, the problem of the developing countries due to the population explosion also indicate the enormous scope of the several industries. A very significant share of the Indian population is below the poverty line. Although these people who do not have sufficient income even to meet the bare minimum basic necessities in the life do not come within the market of the large variety of goods and services. The existence of such a large size of the poor population has a lot of other implications. To solve the basic problem, the additional number of children to be educated, the additional number of people to be provided with the medical care, water supply, etc. During one 5-year plan in India are more than what most nations have done over centuries. While it is formidable national challenge, it also indicates the enormous business opportunities. Thus, a small census representing the most population nations and with India with respect to over there, China being the topmost, India on the second position, then US, Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Russia, Japan, and others are over there. Thus, the occupational and the spatial mobility of the population also have implications for the business in labor is very mobile between the regions and the occupations. The labor problems are likely to be less than other would otherwise be the case. If the labor is highly heterogeneous in respect to the language, regions, and caste, ethnicity, etc., the person management is likely to become the more complex task. A high heterogeneous population with its varied taste, preferences, beliefs, temperament, etc., give rise to the different demand patterns and call for differing marketing strategies. Thus, the falling birth rate and the rising longevity will significantly alter the age distribution within the population, and the portion of the age in the total population will go up. For example, of those 20 odd million Italians by the year 2080, a very small number under this will be under 15, and the very large number, at least one third of the population, will be above 60. In Japan, the disproportion of between the younger people and the people above any traditional retirement age will be equally great, if not greater. In the United States, the young population is already growing much more slowly than the older population, the past traditional retirement. Still, up to the year 2015 or so, the number of the young people will still be growing in the absolute numbers in the United States, but then it is likely to go down and quite rapidly. Thus, the share of old in the total population will increase in the future in almost every nation. Thus, the changes in the age distribution have a lot of implication for the businesses. There's several pharmaceutical companies, for instance, are paying a lot of attention to the potential requirements of the aged population. Thus, the increasing proportion of the aged age would have implication for the government. It may increase the welfare burden of the governments. According to Druckner, the collapsing birth rates will have following implications. For the next 20 30 years, the demographics will dominate the politics of all the developing countries, and they will inevitably be politics of great turbulence, including important issues include the retirement age and the immigration. Second, for the next 20 to 30 years, no developed country is likely, therefore, to have stable politics or a strong government. Government instability is likely to be the norm. Retirement may come to mean two different things. It is quite likely that the trend towards early retirement will continue, but it will no longer mean that the person stops working. It will come to mean that the person stops working full time or as an employee for an organization for the entire year rather than few months at a time. Employment relations traditionally among the most rigid and the most uniform relationships are likely to become increasingly heterogeneous and increasingly flexible, at least for the older people. This will increasingly be the case as the center of the gravity in the older population shift from manual workers to the people who will have never worked in their hands, and especially to the knowledge workers. A shift that will begin in the United States around the year 2010 when the babies of the baby boom, which began in 1948, each reached traditional retirements by the age. And the final implication is that in all developed countries, the productivity of all the workers, whether full time or part time, and especially of all knowledge workers, will have to increase very rapidly. Otherwise, the country and every organization in it will lose the position and become steadily poor. Now, about the migration and the ethnic aspects, while the population will be declining in many developed countries, which will also lead to the labor shortage, the population pressure will also be mounting in the developing nations, and many of which are the neighbors of rich nations. As a consequence of the prevent the migration pressure, as Duckner observes, he is likely preventing the law of gravity, the response of the immigration whatsoever. The immigration is likely to be the hot political issue in a number of countries. Already, immigration has brought about very remarkable ethnic changes in USA. A number of localities are concentrated by the immigrant communities. Detroit claims to be the Arab capital of America. Miami used to be thought as a Cuban enclave, but it is becoming more Haitian, more Jamaican, more all sort of things. Along with the mayor of Miami, his region is home of 156 nationalities. Silicon Valley is merely the last American showpiece to be built in the large parts of the migrants. In 1950, the census, America was 89% white and 10% black. Other races hardly got looked in. Now, Latinos account for 12% of the population. Within the next 5 years, they will overtake blacks to become the largest minority group. In current trends, if continue, they will be in majority in Los Angeles in 10 years. In 20 years, they will dominate Texas and California. And by 2051, 1 in 4 of the 400 million people who will be living in the United States will be the Latino. And if you add the Asians, the joint share will be 1 in 3. It is estimated that every year roughly a million new people arrive, approximately 7 lakh legally, 3 lakhs illegally in the United States. Once settled, the immigrants generally have more children than their neighbors, an average of around 3 per woman compared to 1.8 for the non-Hispanic white woman. Half of the 50 million new inhabitants expected in America in the next 25 years will be immigrants or the children of immigrants. The good old dictum, be the Roman when in Rome hardly happens. Although the US has originally called a melting pot, immigrants have been found to retain their identity rather than melting. As Kotler observes, now the US is called a salad bowl society with the ethnic groups maintaining their ethnic differences, neighborhoods, and culture. Each specific group has certain specific wants and buying habits. Several foods, clothing, and the furniture companies in the US have directed their products into one or more of these groups. For instance, Sears is taking note of the preferences of the different ethnic groups. Colgate Palmolive have successfully promoted its toothpaste with the Hispanic community through ads that take place less emphasis on the health and more emphasis on the appearances. Marketers must, however, be careful not to overgeneralize their ethnic groups because within each ethnic group there are consumers who are different from each other. Now, if I just to summarize this part, the demographic factors such as size of the population, population growth rates, age compositions, ethnic compositions, sectoral distributions of the population, family size, family cycle, income levels, ethnic compositions, religion, etc., have a very significant implication on for the business. And thus, the demographic environment differs from country to country, from place to place, and within the same country, region to region. Because of the diversity of the demographic environment, the companies are sometimes compelled to adopt different strategies in the same market, and the population growth rates vary widely between the nations. Thus, the world population is projected to jump from not about 6 billion in 1999 to over 7 billion in 2014. More than half of the next billion will come in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Asia, Central Asia, and will add just 1% of the world's high income countries will add about 3%. While there has been explosive growth of the global population, particularly in the developing countries, the universal trend now, however, is fall in the birth rates. Although the total population is still growing at over 1% annually, developing countries are also experiencing significant decline in the population growth rates. In developed countries, the fall in the birth rate is so steep that the population size should shrink drastically. Because of the declining birth rate, the population is already speaking in number of countries. The declining birth rate and the collapse of the population sizes have serious implications for the business. And the increase in the population and the increase in the income make the developing countries very attractive market for the future. In fact, there are only three countries, excluding India, China, US, Indonesia, in the world with large total population larger than the population that India added to itself during 1991 to 2001. Thus, the total population of the large number of countries is smaller than the annual addition of the Indian population. So, this is all about the demographic environment. Two references you can refer about Peter Drucker management challenges, then also you can refer the Flip Codeless marketing management content over there. So, this is for the today's class in this session, and this is you can connect back to me on vivekb.management@tme.ac.in. Your faculty and coach for the subject business environment, Vivek Burda. Thank you. Have a good day. We'll see you again in the next session on the next topic.